I was standing on the cobblestone path in front of the hotel's ballroom, Bella Vista, with her fingers squeezing a box wrapped in pink paper that I had spent 3 months saving to buy. A lightweight but powerful telescope. Emily had pointed it out in a catalog last Christmas, with shining eyes full of excitement. I couldn't pay for it then. I could barely afford it now, but today was her 7th birthday, and she had sworn to me that she would receive something that came from the heart, not leftover coupons or fault. The parking lot was already full. Cars with metallic finishes, shining, formed a row. Almost perfect. Through the crystal doors, I could see the flash of silver streamers and giant foil balloons that spelled out "Happy Birthday, Emily." The waiters, dressed in white and black, moved between the tables as if they were dancing, balancing trays with glasses of champagne and snacks. I took a deep breath and took a step forward. Before I could reach the door, a tall man in a gray suit stood in front of me. A badge on his chest said "Security, Marriott Events." He raised a hand with the palm open. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said with a calm but firm voice. "Only with invitation." I blinked. "Sorry." He looked at a tablet in his hand. "Name? Eleanor Vargas. Emily is my granddaughter." His eyes scanned the list. "It's not on the list, ma'am. I can't let you pass uninvited." For a second, I thought it was a mistake, a misunderstanding. Then I saw her, Beatrice, coming out of the doors of the ballroom as if floating in a fashion advertisement. Shiny, curly hair, a dress with a designer cut I had seen once in a Saks catalog I never planned to buy from. She saw me, and her smile tightened just enough to hurt. "Oh, Eleanor," she said, as if I were an acquaintance who appeared without warning. "You didn't receive the email? This year, we made it small, just close. Family." I opened my mouth but closed it again. I looked over her shoulder. At least 500 people. A balloon arch so high it seemed to need scaffolding, a string quartet, a cotton candy machine. "Small," I repeated in a low voice. I extended the gift toward the security guard. He took it, confused, with both hands. I turned around, took out my cell phone, and looked up the name I had memorized just in case. The line rang twice. "Maricela, I'm Eleanor. Freeze all the accounts linked to my name." I didn't go immediately. I stayed there on the cold cobblestones with my reflection trapped on the glass wall of the ballroom, distorted by the inner light and the bounce house that pulsed like something alive. Emily's name was embroidered in gold on the inflatable arch, swinging every time a child jumped against the mesh walls. They were all dressed like miniature celebrities, tulle skirts, patent leather shoes, even a child in a tiny tuxedo. No face seemed familiar to me. My hands hung uselessly at my sides. The weight of the cell phone was still felt in my fingers, although I had already saved it. In my bag, the gift, her telescope, was now with a man who didn't even know her name. Nor mine. I doubted she would ever open it. I moved closer to the crystal. There was Emily, my Emily, with a lilac dress with butterfly sleeves, hair gathered with silver ribbons. She laughed, spinning in dizzy circles while a photographer took pictures fast. For a second, I allowed myself to believe that she would look up and see me and would come running as before, with her arms open, shouting, "Grandma." I remembered the first time I held her. The nurses had barely given her to Beatrice when she passed her to me. Immediately, still blushing from giving birth, whispering that she needed a nap. I stayed 3 weeks in their apartment, cooking, changing diapers, letting Beatrice sleep while I rocked Emily in the living room and hummed lullabies my mother sang to me. When she was 4 months old and had colic, it was me who walked through the halls at night with her on my shoulder. Beatrice said her crying gave her migraines. I remember wiping vomit off my blouse before going to my mid-career job with tired eyes but proud. Beatrice always said thank you back then. When Emily turned 2, she started calling me Lola before she could say grandmother. I didn't correct her. That was our name. Beatrice once joked that I had created a bond with her daughter stronger than hers. I thought she said it with affection. A burst of music brought me out of my memories. Inside, someone was giving a speech. Through the microphone. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw Beatrice near the stage, her hand resting lightly on Stephen's arm. My son didn't even look toward the window. Something inside me, once tender and easy to hurt, changed. It was no longer just hurt. It woke up and was fed up with being erased. It all started little by little. A favor here, a little help there, just until we're stable. Beatrice said over the phone during their honeymoon. Their rental car had broken down in Cancun, and she sounded desperate. Stephen didn't even get on the phone. I'm so sorry to ask you, she whispered, but we spent everything on the wedding. I transferred 5,000 pesos that same hour. Then it was the deposit for the apartment. They wanted something safer near Stephen's work. The new place needed furniture. Then came Beatrice's student loans. Only a few thousand, she said, putting her hand to her chest, as if the debt were going to crush her. Stress is not good for getting pregnant, she added softly. I remember how my heart leaped thinking of a granddaughter. I paid 200,000 pesos in the next 6 months. When Emily was born, I thought things would calm down, but motherhood didn't stop Beatrice. The hospital charged us a fortune, she said, with the baby on her hip. Even with the insurance, we're drowning. Another 100,000 pesos left. My retirement fund. Then came the costs of the nursery. Only until she's old enough for kindergarten. Beatrice promised. That promise stretched out for years. I paid 10,000 pesos per month. For a nursery I never saw. For a girl they rarely let me care for. The mortgage on their new house needed a more solid guarantee. Stephen's credit wasn't enough. I signed. Of course. It's for Emily, Beatrice said. She needs a patio. There were always reasons, always emergencies. A broken pipe, a job change, a medical scare. Beatrice called crying sometimes, so upset that at first she couldn't speak. We don't know what we would do without you, she whispered as she caught her breath. You're the only family that's truly there. It made me feel useful, loved, as if I still had a purpose. Now, 8 years later, I was standing outside a hall full of guests I wasn't invited to serve, and I wasn't even on the list. I had been there for them through everything that mattered, and they had erased me with a click on a guest filter. I opened the door of my car, sat inside, and grabbed the steering wheel with both hands. Something didn't add up, and I was finally ready to do the math. It was the bag that changed everything. A distinctive, expensive, unmistakable emerald green Saint Laurent. I saw it hanging from Beatrice's shoulder in a photo Stephen uploaded from their weekend trip to Valle de Guadalupe. They were standing in front of a vineyard, holding glasses of rose, smiling as if they didn't owe anyone a penny. The caption said, "A very necessary getaway. Emily is with grateful friends." That bag could have paid for 2 months of Emily's nursery, or whatever they had told me was the nursery. Then came the new pearl white SUV, luxury finish, parked in their driveway as if it had always belonged there. I saw it when I dropped off a set of pans Beatrice had borrowed and never returned. She didn't answer the door. A delivery man did, the third in a week, judging by the packages stacked on the porch. Their social media was full of curated perfection, art classes, spa visits, exclusive gym memberships. Always impeccable, always in motion, always financed by something that was clearly not her receptionist's salary nor Stephen's modest paycheck from an NGO. I tried to convince myself it didn't matter, that maybe they had family money or an extra business, but I knew better. The pieces stopped fitting together long ago, I just hadn't wanted to look at the holes in front of me. That night, I called Maricela. We had worked together when I still had a full-time job at the local credit union. She stayed at the bank, I stayed in town. I need to check something, I said, keeping my voice calm. Do you remember if I ever endorsed anything besides the house? There was a pause on the other side of the line. Let me find what I can. She called me back the next day. Eleanor, she said carefully, you'd better sit down. 3 credit cards, a personal loan, 2 store accounts I had never heard of. Everything. Approved using my name as a financial reference and over 300,000 pesos transferred. From my account to one Beatrice Caldwell had marked as an educational fund, which Maricela confirmed was a personal checking account with regular charges for spas, clothing, and travel. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, and then I did something I hadn't done in years. I took out a notebook, uncapped a pen, and began to make a list. I looked at the list in my notebook, dates, amounts, types of transactions. It was like a map of betrayal, and yet I didn't move. The pen floated over the page while I sat in my kitchen, surrounded by the quiet hum of a life I had built with discipline, patience, and enough grace to survive. Widowhood without bitterness. Every peso I saved was earned. Every gift I gave came from deeper than my modest comfort, and I had given too much, more than was due. But the truth is, I didn't want to pick up the phone. I didn't want to be the one who destroyed everything, because I knew what would happen. If I called the bank, if I froze the accounts, if I drew a line Beatrice could not cross, then I would lose Stephen and Emily, at least for a while, maybe forever. I wasn't naive. I had already seen what Beatrice was capable of. Subtle hints, cancelled. Visits, silent shifts in tone, the way she smiled with clenched teeth and spoke in polished phrases that always seemed to position me as a nuisance. I clearly remembered what she said one night when I arrived to pick up Emily. She's better off with a routine, Eleanor. It destabilizes her when things are unpredictable. We'll reduce the visits during the week, just for her stability. That was 4 months ago. I hadn't had Emily all to myself since. I hadn't just been excluded from a birthday party. They had been erasing me frame by frame, like an old photo no longer needed on the shelf. I stood up slowly, walked to the phone, and dialed Maricela's name. When she answered, I didn't hesitate. Freeze everything linked to my name, anything that's used me as a reference. I want it stopped today. Maricela's voice was firm. Done. I hung up and looked at the now empty space on my table, where I used to have a picture of Emily. I had put it away after Christmas. I couldn't remember why. Then I dialed a second number for the Bella Vista Hotel. A woman named Jessica answered. Cheerful and professional. Bella Vista Events. How can I help you? I cleared my throat. You're hosting the Caldwell party today, right? That's right. I'm calling about the venue. In a way, I said. I just thought you should know the credit cards they're using to pay for that party are about to be declined. I didn't expect it to happen so quickly. By the time I got to my driveway, I already had 2 missed calls, both from Stephen's number. I let them go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to hear his voice, not yet, with the gift box still in the passenger seat, unopened. Unintentional. I took it inside like a silent confession and placed it gently on the countertop. Then the third call came. This time, it was Beatrice. I answered. What did you do? Her voice cracked from the start, sharp, frantic, more rage than panic. They just blocked all our cards in the middle of the party, with people watching. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? I leaned against the counter, looked out the window, and spoke softly. I stopped paying for the privilege of being invisible. There was a pause. Then, louder, you're crazy. You just destroyed everything. I didn't say you did it, I said, just that you didn't think they'd ever turn on the lights. She hung up before I could finish. I stood in the silence of my kitchen for several minutes before the next call came. Stephen. I answered on the second ring. Mom, what the hell is going on? His tone wasn't frantic like Beatrice's, just tired, tense. Do you know exactly what's going on? I said. I don't know, he said. Beatrice says she's sure it's you. Look, he sighed, this is ridiculous. You gave that money of your own free will. No one forced you. I walked to the drawer and pulled out the folder I had started. Do you think I gave away 800,000 pesos? I said. I have the records. Every transfer, every emergency check, Every peso she took from my retirement fund under the pretext of helping Emily. He didn't speak right away. I continued. I thought I was supporting my granddaughter. I was wrong. I was supporting an act, and now the curtain has fallen. You could've talked to me first, he said, quieter now. I tried, Stephen. I've been trying for years, but you were always too busy, too trusting, too willing to believe that love looked like silence. He let out a long sigh. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, I told him. Just listen, because the next part isn't about how I feel, it's about what I can prove. The next morning, I walked into Patricia Rivas's office with a folder so thick it seemed it would break at the seam. She didn't blink when I spread the records on her desk. Transfers, loan guarantees, falsified references, bank statements with my name as guarantor. She didn't flinch when I said the words financial fraud and identity misuse. She just looked at me calmly and said, "It's not uncommon." Unfortunately, that hurt more than I expected. By the end of the hour, we had filed the first documents. A formal lawsuit for restitution, 800,000 pesos plus interest, and a motion for legal visitation rights. Patricia explained that in our state, grandparents have rights when a minor's well-being is in question, given financial manipulation and emotional exclusion. She thought we had a solid case. The news spread quickly. Beatrice's retaliation came first in digital form. A vague social media post about bitter relatives who can't let go, followed by a private message. You're a jealous, controlling old woman. You never liked that Stephen chose me. This is just your revenge. I didn't reply. Then a mass email went out to the extended family, painting me as mentally unstable, accusing me of trying to ruin their marriage. She even claimed I wanted to take Emily away out of spite. But the bank records didn't lie. Not the spreadsheet marked in red by Maricela, not the notarized statements I pulled from the credit union, not the signed loan documents that listed me as financial support without my knowledge. Stephen showed up 2 days later, looking like he hadn't slept. He didn't sit down. She says she's leaving, he murmured, his eyes straying anywhere but to mine. She says she'll take Emily and go back to her mother. I don't know what to do. I sat there. Do you know exactly what to do? He clenched his jaw. She's the mother of my daughter. And I'm your mother, I said, one who's been stolen from, humiliated, and erased. Do you think choosing her means keeping your family? She's the one tearing it apart. She says if I support you on this, it's over. The moment you decided not to end belonged to Emily's life, I said. I paused. You'll lose me either way, Stephen. But only one path lets you keep your daughter with dignity. He stayed silent for a long time, his shoulders heavy with the weight of someone who realizes silence never protected him, only delayed the truth. Give me time, he finally said. Time is what I ran out of. I handed him a copy of the court complaint. And as he walked out the door, I knew the next step wouldn't be legal, it would be personal. 3 months passed. The court settlement came quickly once Beatrice's lawyer saw the full extent of the records, full restitution, interest, legal costs, and a visitation schedule that gave me protected time with Emily, regardless of Beatrice's wishes. It was a silent but complete unraveling. The divorce was finalized within weeks. Stephen was granted custody. Beatrice received supervised visits and moved to her mother's condominium 2 towns away. I didn't celebrate, not out loud. Instead, I planted daffodils in the backyard and replaced the old swings Stephen used as a child. Emily came every other weekend. The first visits were cautious, her eyes searching mine as if she feared I'd disappear again. But tonight, we sat in garden chairs side by side, with the telescope between us, pointing to a clear spring sky. She adjusted the knob with both hands, her tongue between her teeth in pure concentration. I see it, she whispered. Grandma, I see. Saturn. I leaned closer. Really? Let me see. She stood up to let me look, and for a moment, I didn't see the planet, but the shine of her little fingers holding the eyepiece, the same. Hands I held when she took her first steps on the mosaic in my kitchen. Stephen was on the porch, watching in silence. He was still grappling with his guilt. I hadn't found the words to say what he needed to say, but he was there. Last week, he cleaned my gutters, changed the lights in the hallway I couldn't reach. He asked how I was sleeping. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. After Emily went inside for hot chocolate, I sat on the swing and let the night settle. The house was warm behind me, lit by soft lamps and the murmur of cartoons. My cell phone vibrated. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Is this Mrs. Vargas? The voice was middle-aged, trembling just enough to sound familiar. My daughter-in-law, I think she's doing the same to me. My son won't listen. I don't know what to do. I saw your story online. I stopped her gently. Breathe, I said. Tell me what happened. I'm listening. And as she began, I opened the notebook again, turned to a blank page, and started writing. What would you do if love was used to leave you bankrupt? How much would you need to stop being someone's silent ATM? And if your silence built someone else's fantasy, when would you finally speak?